now we're looking at some artifacts that are related to the two Chicago World Fairs, the 1893 World's Fair and the 1933 Century of Progress. So we have a number of souvenirs from the 1893 World's Fair, not as many as the Century of Progress, but we do have a few like this one.
That one is amazing. Is that the Ferris wheel?
It absolutely is. So it's a paperweight, and it has a photo of the Ferris wheel on it, and on the back is the official souvenir of the Ferris wheel.
Because
right
the Ferris
there.
wheel made by Mr. Ferris in Chicago, right?
That is absolutely right. So when he went to Daniel Burnham, who was the architect of the 1893 World's Fair, Burnham said, can you build something that is similar to what the Parisians did, the Eiffel Tower that had been recently built in Paris for their World Fair? And he wanted something really impressive and amazing like that. And George Washington Ferris decided to create this Ferris wheel. It was pretty amazing because it was huge. It says here on the back, it was 258 feet in height, and the cars were not small cars like you would see at the Ferris wheel at Navy Pier, for instance, or in other Ferris wheels that are smaller. These cars were huge. They could hold 20 people at a time, so it could take up hundreds of passengers at a time every time it did a loop. And the ride was 2 loops for only 50 cents back in 1893, which was pretty good. And it really was, it's a great example of that innovative kind of technology, Chicago being in the forefront of that kind of technology. It was disassembled, and for a few years they put it back up in Lincoln Park, in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. And then after that, they took it down again in 1904, and it traveled to the St. Louis Fair. But after that, they took it apart, dismantled it, and it didn't exist anymore after that.
Should have left well enough alone and left it here with us.
That's right. But I mean, it did leave this lasting legacy of Ferris wheels.
Well, it's totally appropriate that it comes from Daniel Burnham and Mr. Ferris, because Mr. Daniel Burnham told us make no little plans, right? That's certainly a big plan.
Oh, it was very big plan, very big plan. And similar to this, we have a couple of other artifacts that are related to rides at the World's Fair. So the Century of Progress 1933 World's Fair, which was a little further to the north of the museum, had an amazing number of buildings that were very, very colorful and are represented on these Blatt's bubblegum cards. Now, Blatt's bubblegum, they used to be a brewery, but then you had Prohibition.
Right.
And with Prohibition, you had to start selling soda and gum instead. So that's what they did. And in 1933, they created these beautiful, colorful cards, because the 1933 Century of Progress Fair was also known as the Rainbow City. Unlike 1893, was called the White City. That's right. So this one was the Rainbow City. And their main attraction, was this Sky Ride. And this was 600 feet in height, these 2 towers with cables running across the 2 towers that would take you from the lagoon to the lake shore. And it was an amazing sight. If you went to the top of these towers, you could see as far as Indiana and Michigan, especially if you used the telescopes that they had up there. So that was pretty amazing. And one of the artifacts from that is this bolt, which was removed from the Sky Ride. It's pretty hefty, it's pretty heavy in weight, and it says, removed from the towers, Amos and Andy, A Century of Progress, and it tells you the company who dismantled it, which was a company in Springfield, Illinois.
Well, there's so much Chicago going on there. Of course, Amos and Andy as a show finds its origins here in Chicago. And while I'm not absolutely in love with that particular legacy, what I also love pointing out to Chicagoans the irony of having a Century of Progress Fair when as a city we had not turned 100 years yet, right? 1933 marks the 100 years that we were a village. We had a village in 1833, and so it was billed as a Century of Progress for our city, but we hadn't hit a century yet. We needed a few more years, right?
That's so true. Yes.